r/AskReddit. What is the dumbest thing you got punished for in school? In high school, the year I got there was the year they instituted a rule that you had to display your ID at all times while at school. If you didn't have your ID out, you could get detention. Due to reasons, I got to school about an hour before first bell and had zero way of getting back home or getting anything from home, well, until the end of school, of course. So I get to school and realize, oh noes, I forgot my ID at home. Well, no problem, I'll just go to the office and get a temp one. Welp, turns out I should have tried to make it through the day without my ID because I got detention anyway, and I knew that I had a greater than 95% chance of making it through the day without anyone who cared noticing I didn't have my ID out. But no, I tried to do the right thing. Well, fuck you school, you taught me a terrible lesson. 4th grade history, talking about the pioneers moving into the American West in the 1800s. The assignment was to come up with a list of things you would pack in your wagon if you were moving 1,000 miles into the wilderness. All of the kids in the class had the usual stuff: food, clothes, medicine, a tent, blankets, etc. A few of us, including myself, had toilet paper on the list because why wouldn't we have it on the list? Toilet paper is a perfectly reasonable thing to pack, right? Anyway, toilet paper offended our teacher's Puritan sensibilities and everybody who listed it went to the principal's office and got suspended from recess for a few days. I got detention for saying okay to my home economics teacher in middle school. Seriously. We were in class and she asked me to do something and I replied, politely, okay. The teacher has a detention board and a day later I see my first name on it. I have a very common name and, joking with her, went haha that's for me right? She said it was. I asked her what I did and she said it was because I replied okay to her when she asked me to do something, and she hates when people do that. She just wants them to do it. I was stunned. I told her I wasn't going to detention. I got home and told my mom what happened. My teacher's son was in the same grade as my older sister, so my mom knew the teacher. She ended up calling her, and the teacher apparently was fumbling over her words trying to justify the detention. The next day, she goes to me, "You served this detention right?" As a wink wink nudge nudge type of thing. I said no, and I'm not going to. She goes, "No, you served it right." I decided to just say sure, and that was that. Not being able to read the teacher's handwriting. Looking back, the whole situation was hilarious, but at the time, he was a tyrant of a teacher and everyone was scared of him. He was writing notes on a whiteboard, which we had to transcribe into our notebooks. One of the sentences had the words glass tube in it. He wrote the SS in a way that it looked like an M being young, and now if I asked what is a glam tube, he went mental, shouting at me, and dragged me across the desk by my ear, screaming about me not being able to read, and shouting glam tube. I'm sure it ended up in a detention for me. Less than a year later he was dismissed as a teacher from the school due to anger issues. For me, it was whole class detentions. I was always the quiet kid who would get on with work, and was rarely disruptive in class. Most of the teachers were well aware of this. But sometimes, I would end up in detention because some people were misbehaving, and the teacher simply held the entire class back, including the well-behaved ones. It happened quite a few times and I really hated it. The justification was that the good kids would pressure the bad kids. Somehow, how teachers thought a shy quiet kid like me could pressure the class dickheads to keep quiet, I really don't know. I actually have a great story on this one. In 4th grade, or something, I had this old bitch of a teacher we all really hated. Let's call her Catherine, her actual name. So I was hanging out in the schoolyard when some first graders came running towards me and kicked me in the nuts, with absolutely no reason whatsoever. So I started crying and screaming from the unbearable pain I was in. Catherine comes running and starts screaming at me for making a scene. She starts screaming at a little kid who just got his nuts kicked far up his stomach. So I scream right back at her, and she asks me if I wanted to move this whole discussion to the principal's office. Knowing I was being treated extremely wrong, my answer is of course yes. Catherine ended up getting yelled at by the principal for 20 minutes or so, and I got to go home 3 hours before school ended. Best day ever. In 5th grade, I had to poo, so I went and pooed. It was a bit of a big one, so it took me some time. When I came back, the teacher started asking me, out loud in front of the class, what I was doing, that I was gone so long. I said, I had to use the bathroom. She then started yelling at me, you were gone too long, and I won't tolerate screwing around yada yada. She must have been having a bad day, but I got really upset, and I yelled out, I had to take a shit, my god. Silence. Detention. My dad came in, and when he heard what happened, told me while he was happy I stood up for myself. I probably could have been more tactful. When I was in 4th grade, I was given detention for reading books too quickly. The teacher had divided the books by difficulty, and she thought I was stupid, so she put me at the lowest reading level. Even though I was one of the smarter students in the class, I finished all of the books within the course of about 2 weeks. When I told her that I was finished with them and would like to start reading the more difficult books, she called me a liar and gave me a week's worth of detention, claiming there was no way that I could have read and understood those books so fast. I saw her a few years ago, and she was surprised that I'm on the dean's list at my college, let alone at the college I'm attending. I'm graduating from college next year with the intention on going to medical school. I think I can fucking read. Got punished for being punished. Teacher kicked me out because I was a minute late, honestly, so I was chilling outside the class when the principal walks by and gives me an earful about delinquency and indiscipline. Real douchebag, had to stick up his ass at the time and threatened to call my parents. Starts spouting bullshit on the phone, so I interrupted and told him that he cannot speak to my parents in such a way, especially when he is not speaking the truth. Gets frustrated and suspends me for 2 days. I have no idea what was wrong with him, but I enjoyed those 2 days. So it's the last day of middle school. We're all headed down to the auditorium for the end of year award and whatever ceremony. Before we were leaving class to go, our teacher tells us we have to sit boy girl when we get down there. Now you can imagine our disappointment when we have all of our friends in there and we are told we can't sit next to them on the last day of school. Anyway, after the initial moans and groans, I asked her right before we left why we had to sit that way. Apparently it was the tipping point because she flipped out on me and told me to go sit in the principal's office during the ceremony. So I went down and sat in the office during the ceremony. The best part about this was that my dad was a teacher at the same school. He was in the ceremony and little did anyone know I was receiving the biggest award for perfect attendance throughout the whole 3 years of middle school. After they called my name several times, my teacher had to stand up and tell the whole school that I was in the office and wasn't there. Needless to say, my dad was pretty pissed when he saw me after school. I explained to him I didn't really do anything, and he seemed to be more pissed at the other teacher after I explained. She was being a bitch after all. I was once told I was not allowed to use the restroom. I was in a career and tech program during high school, where I would go to another school for half the day. From there I would ride a bus to our middle school. I would then wait for my bus to go home. One day as I was waiting for the bus, I went to go use the bathroom. I was stopped by the vice principal and told I was not allowed to enter the building. I'm not an argumentative guy, so I say nothing. I then wait to when she is not near the entrance and I walk into the principal's office. Told him what had happened. He told me it was ridiculous and it would not happen again. It in fact did not happen again. Grade 10. I live in Toronto, but I'm not a fan of the Maple Leafs. Truth is, I'm not a hockey fan in general, but I digress. During this time there was a huge playoff feud between the Leafs and the NJ Devils. Being the kid who has to be different, I wore my brother's Devils jersey to school. I got many jeers from Leaf fans and some even threatening me. Proof in my eyes what shits Leaf fans are. As I was sitting down to history class, I got called into the office. The principal began scolding me on my lack of respect for the school's uniform dress code by wearing a hockey jersey. I pointed out that half the school was wearing Leafs jerseys. He then pointed out that the image of the devil had no place in a Catholic school and that I was being disruptive to the classes with my jersey. He suspended me for a week, not once noting the hypocrisy of berating me about a jersey while behind him on the wall was a framed, autographed Maple Leafs jersey. Leaf fans are sore losers. You'd think they'd be used to losing by now.